Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Thursday, April 29th, 2021. I am Andrew Hansen. Thank you for joining me on this NFL Draft Thursday for some NBA DFS coverage. It's a six-game slate, and I've been prepping here, doing a little extra research on who's in and who's out. I had a busy morning at a baseball practice, so I had to delay the recording here a little bit. But the benefit is we got some important news for the slate right after lunchtime. So I will incorporate that into the six-game breakdown and try to help everybody build towards some winning lineups on FanDuel and DraftKings. Coach, of course, has the day off today. He'll be back tomorrow. So it's just you and me today. Thanks again for jumping in, and let's get after it here so we can build some winners and watch the winnings pile up while we've got our eye on the NFL draft as well. All right, six-game NBA slate. Four of the 12 teams involved in a back-to-back. And we have two totals over 230 and one at 240. How about that? A pretty nice mix on a six-game slate. And let's jump into some real injury news here in game one. Dallas and Detroit. Man, they're looking at their two rosters here. And it's quite a mix on each side. So starting with Dallas, we have right now Luka doubtful, DFS doubtful, and now we have Porzingis probable, Jay Rich probable, Redick probable, Kleber questionable. So the entire starting five is at issue. On the Detroit side, it looks like we're going to have the JV team because Corey Joseph, Plumlee, Grant, they've all been ruled out, and then Magruder, Ellington, Dennis Smith Jr. all out. So how is this going to break down? Well, we're not quite sure about the final starting lineup for Dallas, of course, but the guys I'm looking at, number one, absolutely Brunson. If Luka's out, Brunson's a great price on both sites. So he is probably going to be a core value play for me. Tim Hardaway Jr. is also going to be in the mix for me at 4K on both sites. I think with DFS likely out, he will get a real opportunity. Even if Jay Rich is playing, Hardaway Jr. should be taking a bunch of shots. Probably won't mess with Porzingis or any of the other bigs. If we have Porzingis and Kleber out there along with Powell and Willie Cauley-Stein, then it will be a bit of a rotation that I don't want to mess with. And then Trey Burke is the other wild card here. He's gotten a good opportunity lately with guys out. He had that great shooting night 2 games ago, 8 for 14, but then 2 for 13 against Golden State. So he's a little bit hard to trust. And if he's coming off the bench, I probably won't go there. We've got some decent value options later in the slate. On the Detroit side, by the way, Dallas currently favored by 8.5, and one of the lower totals here, 214.5. In fact, the lowest on the slate because we have 25 and 22 for pace and average defenses, and of course, Detroit's offense is not good. So with Detroit and that JV team, were the last time that crew was out, the key starters, the 10-man rotation they went with was Hayes, Josh Jackson, Bay, Doumbouya, and Stewart. Those were the starters. And then the guys who got minutes off the bench, Frank Jackson, Diallo, Saben Lee, Tyler Cook, and Okafor. Now, the guys I'm going to look at here, Killian Hayes is in play. I think he'll start and get good minutes. He's really cheap. Hasn't shown a really big ceiling lately, but decent production as a starter. Bay, really volatile. I don't like playing him because he could give you 12 or 35. So he's not my favorite option here. Stewart, though, I am going to have a lot of exposure to Mr. Stewart. Power forward today on FanDuel, 59, and center, DraftKings 6,000. I like that you can play him as a power forward on FanDuel. We like to attack Dallas with bigs, and he's just a monster whenever he's getting 30 minutes. So I like Stewart today. And then you could go with one of the Jacksons. Josh, much more expensive than Frank, but those are the guys that do get a ton of shots in games like this. And I do prefer Frank Jackson over Diallo right now. Just the way they've been playing, the way he's been aggressive, the way he's been shooting it. And I'm not going to mess with any of those other guys, Dumboya, Lee, Cook, or Okafor. So because of the news here, I could come out of here with probably at a minimum Brunson and Stewart and maybe another play, but probably not in most lineups. Probably just those two. And then we continue on because game 2 is that 240 total. Brooklyn and Indiana, another 7 o'clock tip. This one's going to be on NBA TV. And it opened with Brooklyn as 8.5-point favorites with that 240 total. We'll see if that changes throughout the day because the news just came that Kyrie is going to sit this one out. We know that Claxton is still out for Brooklyn. Alize Johnson is available. And then with Indiana, Sabonis and Turner are still out. And once again, Lamb and Goga are questionable. So let's start with Brooklyn here. Now, we do have a great pace here and an awesome offense. It will be negatively impacted without Kyrie, of course, but we still have Durant out there. And they still have the opponent as Indiana with their solid pace, their 12th, and just average defense. So it's still a good environment without Kyrie, not as good. But I do want significant exposure here. Durant is locked in for me on both sites. He's still way too cheap on DraftKings at 8,500. What a performance in the last game, by the way. He had 45 fantasy points. He only took 7 shots from the field. Played 33 minutes. I didn't get to watch that one, so I'm curious what happened. I don't know how they managed to hold him to only 7 shot attempts in 33 minutes. He did go to the line for four free throws, so there's 2 more shots there. But if anybody watched that game and they want to share that, great opportunity. Reach out to us on YouTube, leave a comment there, or on Twitter at DFS Coach Talk. We love interacting with our listeners, of course. You know that. But I didn't get to see that one, so I'm curious about that piece of news. And I would think that other teams, front offices, coaches would watch that tape and see if the double was that effective, a double team, or what exactly they did. Because you want to limit KD's shots as an opponent. He is so efficient as a scorer. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's going to get double-digit shot attempts tonight with Kyrie out in an up-tempo game. So I'm ready to lock him in on both sites, even 9,300 on FanDuel. I'm ready to play him for sure. The rest of the starting lineup for Brooklyn, I think it will include Shamet, Joe Harris, and Jeff Green. Not sure about the 5th guy. If Goga starts and is healthy, maybe they go with another big like Blake Griffin or DeAndre Jordan, and they let Shamet run the point. Or maybe they stay a little bit smaller and they come with one of these value guards, Tyler Johnson, the guy who's been there for a while, or Mike James, the new guy on the scene. And both of those guys are really important on this slate because of Kyrie's absence. I think one of them will likely start. Both of them, I think, either way are going to get probably at least 20 minutes, maybe more, maybe 24 to 28. And they're both cheap on both sites. Mike James, veteran, only has played 3 games for Brooklyn, but a couple of games he's had decent minutes, like the last one, 21 minutes, 11 points, and 8 assists. So you could look there as a value option. Jeff Green, I think we need to talk about as well, because in that last game against Toronto, they started with Durant and Jeff Green at the 4 and 5. And if they can do that, and if they will do that against Toronto, who had Birch and Siakam out there, I think they're going to do the same against Indiana, who could have Brissett and Sampson at the 4 and the 5. So I think Jeff Green's opportunity is really solid here. He played 37 minutes against Toronto, played really well, and he's still a great price on DraftKings at 4,800. A little bit tougher on FanDuel at 6,000, but I am going to still consider him there. On the Indiana side, Brogdon is a guy that I'm really looking at. I just like how he's been playing lately, really aggressive, decent price, great game environment, of course. And then the other guys, Not quite as definitive for me on if I want to get another pacer out there. A couple of them are a lot cheaper on DraftKings. Sumner, our man Brissett, 5,300 on DraftKings, but 68 on FanDuel at a very crowded small forward position today, including Durant. So Brissett is a tough one because he obviously has 40-point upside, even 50, but expensive at small forward today. Sampson, they are really tempting us, aren't they, in the 3K range for a guy who can get good minutes if Goga's out again. But I don't think we need to go there. So I'm planning to fade him today. And that's probably it. Going to be really interesting to see how the game is impacted without Kyrie. But I think Durant is one of those situations where you just eat the chalk and you call it a free square, and on we go. All right, game 3. Another good total here. Milwaukee and Houston, 233.5. Milwaukee, the big favorites here, 12.5 on the road. It is a front end for them. Also, front end for Brooklyn, by the way. I didn't mention that. So Kyrie, maybe he's just resting and he'll come back tomorrow. But front end for Milwaukee is very important. We know that Budenholzer spent a lot of time in San Antonio. He runs things like pop in many ways. And this is one of those situations that, to me, screams stay away. It's front end of a back-to-back. It's Milwaukee against Houston. Huge favorites. Easily could smash them. And, because it's Budenholzer, on a front end, he often plays his starters 27, 28 minutes. And then if it's a blowout, you feel even more strong about the fact that they'll be limited in their minutes. Now, they could smash while they're out there, but I think if everybody plays right now, Giannis and DiVincenzo are listed as probable. If everybody plays, what we do here is we hope that it is a pretty easy win for Milwaukee, and that's the breakdown they have. 28 minutes for the starters. The backups get about 20. So for me, it's really, if you're going to play anybody, it would be a backup, but I don't think there's a great price or clarity on those guys either. Portis, who has had a lot of great outings this year, especially when he starts, has been really hampered lately by PJ Tucker and his minutes. Look at the last game. Portis only played 13 minutes. PJ Tucker played 26. So I don't want to play Portis unless Giannis is out and Portis is starting. Then I would consider him. We also have Giannis's brother. We've got Connaughton, Forbes. So I'm going to fade Milwaukee unless something changes. I am going to look at Houston, though. We've got the great pace. Milwaukee's third and Houston's fifth. So these teams are going to get up and down. And we have a lot of absences for Houston. We know that Wall is out now for the season. Gordon and Brown are still out, along with DJ Augustine. And we just got the news that Bradley and House are out. So it's a much tighter rotation for Houston. And although we have really strong defense from Milwaukee, because of the fast pace and because of the small rotation for Houston, all their key guys are in play for me. Kevin Porter Jr., Jayshawn Tate, Kelly Olynyk, Wood, and then on the bench, KJ Martin, DJ Wilson. Perhaps one of those guys will start and be that fifth guy. Then we've got Armani Brooks. Now, in that last game, Porter Jr.'s first game back, didn't do much, 2 for 12 from the field, disappointing. He's still cheap on FanDuel, though, at 5,600. And then the other three guys, they all stepped up. Jayshawn Tate, really solid. Kelly Olynyk, how about this guy? 3 straight games of over 45 fantasy points. He's now over 8,000 on FanDuel. I think he can retire happy now, having surpassed that mark. That's really impressive. So what a transition for him to go from Miami to Houston, and he's just been awesome. Really taking advantage of the playing time. But 8,000, a little too much for me. 6,900 maybe GPP option on DraftKings. Not my favorite option. Probably a little more likely to play Wood He's a little more expensive, mid 8,000s. But the usage is really going to be focused with those four guys: Porter, Jay Sean, Kelly, and Wood. So I wouldn't mind getting one or two of those guys. And I think that's where I'll focus. I don't know if I'll go to one of these bench guys. Armani Brooks had a real dud in that last one, but his minutes were hurt by Avery Bradley, who got 27, and Brooks didn't play well, didn't get many minutes. But I think he'll do better tonight, and then we'll see about that starting lineup with whether we get Martin or Wilson out there. All right, halfway through the slate, we have another 8 o'clock game now. It's Golden State and Minnesota. 234 total, and the Warriors favored by 3.5. This is an island game for both teams. The news here, we have Damian Lee still out, Oubre doubtful, and Bazemore back in. And the Warriors have already announced that Bazemore is going to start, which I think will put Mulder back on the bench. He really mopped up, took advantage of the garbage time in that last game against Dallas. What a game, by the way. Dallas winning by 30. Man, what a shocker that was. So he took advantage. But I think the starters tonight will be Curry, Bazemore, Wiggins, Draymond, and Looney. Let's talk about the lineup here for Minnesota, because these two teams have played twice before. Pretty high scoring, nice wins for Golden State, but it was a much different situation because D'Angelo Russell didn't play in those games. Cat didn't play. Beasley was playing, and Anthony Edwards was coming off the bench. So other than that, we're going to get the same matchups tonight. So I think we kind of throw those out the window, and we break down these new rotations. Curry, the way he's been playing, certainly in the mix. Bazemore, the last time we saw him 8 days ago, you remember what he did? 52 fantasy points against Washington. So at 3,900 on DraftKings, I'm happy to roll him out there again. We know that Bazemore can be quite volatile with his output, but as a starter with Damian Lee out and Oubre doubtful, I like Bazemore's minutes here against Minnesota. Great pace game again. Golden State is second. Minnesota's fourth. So that's why we've got these high totals today. So I like Bazemore here on DraftKings. A lot more expensive on FanDuel at 53, and he's one of those guys in that mix at small forward who might get pushed out because of the depth at that position. But you can find a way to get him in your lineup on DraftKings. Wiggins going up against his former team, he's a reasonable option, especially if Oubre is out. And then Poole, another guy off the bench you could play, a value guard who maybe isn't quite as attractive if we get Brunson, some of these other value options to look at, but he's a deeper GPP option for you. On the Minnesota side, I don't know if I'll pay up for Cat today. I think I'm more likely to go with D'Angelo Russell. He's the guy I'm looking at the most against his former team, and he's really settling into about 30 minutes per game now, even off the bench. Got 29 minutes in the last game in a back-to-back off the bench. So you like the minutes, you love the pace, you love the motivation for him and the way he's been playing. I also like that he's a shooting guard on FanDuel. So he's probably my favorite player from Minnesota today. Anthony Edwards, a little bit pricey. Probably will just miss out because of that price for me. And then how about Juancho Hernangomez off the bench? He's been playing about 18 or 19 minutes a game, but he went wild in that last game, 28 minutes against Houston, scored 22, 7 rebounds, still really cheap on DraftKings at 3,300. So you could look there again. That power forward, let's call it, a rotation for Minnesota has been a little bit inconsistent. So that's more of a GPP option. You can't lock in over 20 minutes for him. But, if I'm Coach Finch and he's shooting it that well, I don't know why I wouldn't let him get 20 to 24 minutes. So he's in the mix for me. Definitely a game we'd like to have a little bit of exposure to on a balanced lineup. All right, 2 games left. These are the 9 o'clock Eastern tips. And if you're new to the program, I should inform you that we build full lineups for our members, including the after-hours slate, which is a lot of fun. We've had a lot of success there. So if you want to see how the final lineups pan out tonight and get the full lineups for the main slate and the after-hours slate, jump in with us as a member at dfscoachtalk.com. Once you sign up there, we will send you an email and get you into our Discord. Then we give out the lineups about 20 to 30 minutes before the main slate lock. And then we're right there with you following the news throughout the evening. And we post the after hours lineups in the about 20 minutes before that lock. So that will be tonight at 8:40 Eastern. And again, sit back and relax, watch that NFL draft, and let us build the hopefully winning lineups for you and plug those in on FanDuel and Yahoo, and then DraftKings, you get the coach's clipboard. So that's the story there. Any questions, reach out to us on Twitter at DFS Coach Talk. All right, what do we have here with New Orleans and OKC? We have a 229.5 total. New Orleans favored by 9, back-to-back after that close loss in Denver. They make the journey over to OKC, and we have Steven Adams questionable again with the infamous toe. The toe heard round the world. Kind of messed with us last night. Was he going to play or not? Then he started. Then he got re-aggravated. Hernangomez ended up with 24 minutes off the bench. Didn't do a whole lot, but we're right back in that same situation. Tonight, I'm not looking to play either one of them. Even if Hernangomez starts, you could go there. He could certainly pay off value in the 4K range. I just don't like the matchup quite as much. So not my first option tonight. Pretty decent game environment, though. We've got number 12 and number 7 pace, both bad defenses in the bottom 6 or 7, and New Orleans obviously can still score it. So a lot of good variables. We just sort of need to sort through the prices and the matchups. So on the New Orleans side, Ball was terrific last night. A nice, healthy triple-double. He's in the 6K range. He's an option. Bledsoe has played a little bit better recently. He's in the 4K range. He's worth considering. And then before we even mention Ingram or Zion, we got to mention Dort on the other side. I mean, come on. We kind of joked about his impact on the slate and on OKC before the last one, and then sure enough, they go out and they beat Boston on the road with Dort, right there in the mix. Now, can he single-handedly defend the entire New Orleans team and slow them down? He might. He might be able to. So be careful with your exposure on New Orleans. That's all I'm going to say. He's tremendous and great defensive versatility. And so if you add the fact that he's out there defending with the back-to-back, those two things make me a little hesitant to get too excited about the New Orleans guys. But I could still see one of them being a one-off who would get in there. Zion probably my least favorite tonight because he's so expensive. If I had to pick one, probably Lonzo. But man, Bledsoe, what a cheap option there you could go to. Wouldn't be shocked, though, if I end up fading these guys just because the way that the roster's coming together. I like some of the guys in the other games a little bit better. Now, how about this OKC side? We have Muscala still out, Josh Hall available, and then Gabriel Deck is available to make his debut. He's the player they signed from Argentina. Then he was in the Euro League. And I watched some highlights of him today. He's listed at 6'6". I will describe him as a skilled perimeter player who can facilitate the offense. Doesn't have tremendous athleticism. He's got the moves to drive to the basket, but he's not explosive. Uh, but he also seems to have a decent stroke, 41% on his three-pointers. Minimum price on both sites. Interesting that he's a power forward on DraftKings, small forward on FanDuel. We don't know yet if he'll definitely be playing or how many minutes he'll get. But the fact that he's available, it really does throw a wrench into this rotation. He could take a couple minutes away from guys like Dort and Bazley, Pokusevski. Maybe not take minutes away from Dort. I mean, I think they're going to play Dort however many minutes they want. But he's in the mix potentially, and probably more likely to impact Ty Jerome or Svi Mikhailiuk, who've been those two scorers off the bench, facilitating the offense. Ty Jerome lately has done a little bit more than Svi. The usage has been there. So before the deck news, I was looking at Ty Jerome as a potential value play, but now with Deck possibly playing, it really complicates the entire situation for me. So I am hesitant to play anybody on OKC other than Dort. Even Bazley, he could get impacted a little bit because we've got Pokusevski and Roby there to get minutes. So for me right now, it's Dort or pass on the OKC side. All right, final game of the night, Toronto and Denver. 221 total. Denver favored by 3. It's a back-to-back, of course, for Denver, island game for Toronto, and we just got some news there. We knew that Trent and Watson were out, and now we learn that Fred VanVleet is out. So, Mr. Lowry looking pretty good at a good price, 6,400 on FanDuel. Really cheap for him without VanVleet. Looking at the rest of the starting lineup, we've got OG, Siakam, Birch. Birch is in play for me, a mid-tier center option. And then we'll see about that final starting spot. Another guy to look at here is Malachi Flynn. Don't know if he'll start, but even if he doesn't, then I really like his minutes without VanVleet. I think he could push for 30. So he's another value option to consider. Don't know if I'll get maybe 2 of these Raptors with the shorter rotation and the good prices. I don't know if I would get to 3 on the main slate, but I could easily go with Lowry and Birch. And then with Denver, I got to mention Jokic last night and the block. What a play against Zion to steal that victory. And to me, it was a block on Zion, but it was also a block on the rest of the MVP candidates. I mean, I think if it wasn't over already, you got to give it to him now. Just another tremendous play. The guy plays every single night, gives you a triple-double almost every night. Just phenomenal. And he just keeps finding new ways to make highlights. So we got to give him that award. And then Campazzo. How about his performance last night? 19, 6, and 10. Played big minutes. It is a back-to-back. He's going to deal with the veteran, tough defender, Lowry. So I'm not ready to lock him in again here on the back-to-back. I think at this point in that price range for the guards, I'd rather pay for Brunson if he starts and Luka's out. But on that after-hour slate, Campazzo will certainly be in the mix. And then Jokic always in play. Don't know if I'm too fired up about the rest of the starters, though. I think Michael Porter Jr., who's been playing really well, is going to have to deal with OG Anunoby, who's a real strong defender and can give him trouble. Dozier's shots have been down a little bit here the last couple of games as a starter as his price has gone up. And we know that Gordon is just not a central figure on the offense right now. So I don't really want to go there. On the bench, Millsap was solid last night, and JaMychal Green with a DNP CD. But I don't want to trust that situation on the main slate either. Who knows? Maybe they rest Millsap tonight and give JaMychal Green those minutes. So that's a situation to avoid. And then Austin Rivers, got big minutes but didn't do much, and showed once again, well, he's a very volatile option, whichever team he's on. But he is getting those minutes, so something to keep an eye on. All right, that completes the summary of the 6 games. I hope that benefited your builds, and definitely invite you to stay with us throughout the day on Twitter. You can find me at Language Olympic. You can also find the coach at JoeSarvadi. And again, jump in with us as a member if you haven't yet. Grab our full lineups on FanDuel and Yahoo, Coach's Clipboard on DraftKings for the main slate and the after hours slate. And then on YouTube, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We'd certainly appreciate that. And then give us a thumbs up wherever you're listening if you don't mind. And we're going to continue to roll with 7 days a week on this podcast in front of the paywall. That's what we love doing here. We're passionate about the NBA. But as a reminder, again, if you're new to the show and you grab one of those memberships, you're going to get access to all of our sports, baseball every day, basketball every day, of course, and then golf every Wednesday for the main slate and every Friday for the weekend action. So that will complete the show for today. On behalf of the DFS Coach Talk team, I am Andrew Hansen. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you again tomorrow as we look to crush it in DFS.